It's mid-November here in Broome and the off-season is in full swing. The combination of heat and unpredictable weather keeps most travellers away at this time of year, but I reckon the prospect of some of the world's best beaches and national parks without the crowds is just too good to pass up. And having just driven 2,000 kilometres through the Outback, Nat and I are both ready to be by the water. We've got about 2,500 kilometres to get to Perth, some great stops planned, hoping conditions stay just like this, but with a big comfy motorhome, we're ready for whatever comes our way. Welcome to the second and final instalment of our road trip from Darwin to Perth. We had 4 weeks to get this motorhome down to Perth. With no campsites booked and a massive stretch of outback ahead, our plan was simply to hit the road and figure it out on the go. We found our first stop less than 2 hours down the highway, a cattle station on roughly 500,000 acres of oceanfront land. This is Barn Hill Station, and from the moment we parked up, we didn't see another person. The beach was at our doorstep, and although the risk of jellyfish kept us out of the water, an ocean breeze helped keep the heat at bay. And with the sun low in the sky, conditions for an evening stroll couldn't have been better. I'm told in the cooler months, Barn Hill can be packed with hundreds of travellers. There's food available, a bowling green, and plenty going on. It's meant to be a great experience, but I feel really lucky to have had this final slice of the Kimberley all to ourselves. Pacing a long road trip isn't easy, as you're always faced with the temptation to stay at places like this for just a little longer. But this second part of our adventure was just getting started, and we pushed on.
Desdemona, where do I begin? Who among us here is without sin? I'm just a lonesome drifter on the only highway.
Further south, I expected we'd encounter more travellers, but based on the empty roads so far, it was unlikely we'd need to book anything in advance, at least for the time being. After 250 kilometres on the highway, we had 8 kilometres of dust, bound for the enticingly named 80 Mile Beach.
I'm just a lonesome drifter on the only highway.
Good morning. This was originally called 90 Mile Beach, but there's a 90 Mile Beach in Victoria, so in the 1940s, they renamed it 80 Mile Beach. The crazy thing is, it's not 80 or 90 miles. It is in fact Western Australia's longest uninterrupted stretch of beach at about 140 miles. But it's home to sharks, jellyfish, and sea snakes. There's a lot of sea snakes here apparently. The most common variety is the olive-headed sea snake. I'm told they are social and curious, and also venomous. So I think I will opt for a cold shower instead. Living overseas, people would often talk to me about their fear of Australia's wildlife. For the most part, I dismissed it. However, caution is clearly warranted in certain parts of the country. But not everything here wants to hurt you. The region is also renowned for the endemic flatback turtles who come here to lay their eggs. A new moon and strong winds stopped us from seeing much. However, with a bit of luck, we'd encounter more turtles as we continued our journey south.
Lonesome
Unable to swim at the beach, we decided our best move was to make a detour inland and drive almost 600 kilometres to the state's second largest national park. This is the heart of the Pilbara region, a vast, mineral-rich outback covering over 500,000 square kilometres. The Pilbara is better known for mining than tourism, and approaching the hub of Port Hedland, the scale of it becomes evident. Continuing south the following day, 90% of the vehicles on the road had something to do with mining, and our overnight stop at Oski Roadhouse was no different. But among all this heavy industry is one of Western Australia's most epic national parks. And once we left the highway, we had the open roads of Karijini all to ourselves. Karijini is most famous for deep, red rock gorges and waterfalls that lead to swimming holes. The rains had yet to hit, and the environment here felt incredibly harsh. Adding to that, it was hot, especially in the middle of the day. Fortunately, most of the lookouts only require a short walk, with a lack of people and the echoing caw of crows creating a desolate atmosphere. Flies had been an on and off issue in different parts of the outback, and it's hard to predict when and where they'll show up. In Karijini, there were so many that we pulled out these fashionable headpieces. However, what this park offers more than makes up for a few insects. Some of Karijini's waterholes aren't swimmable at the moment and need fresh rains, but this little oasis called Fern Pool was perfect, as was nearby Fortescue Falls. We were one of only a handful of vehicles staying inside the park. Being off the grid meant no air conditioning. However, it also meant we were within walking distance of the park swimming holes. My number one travel tip is to get to places early. This is one of the most amazing places you could possibly swim anywhere in the world, and to have it without another soul is very, very special. Add to that, it's 25 degrees instead of the 35 or 40 degrees it was yesterday, and there's barely a fly in sight. I'm going to savor this moment, and then in a few hours we'll continue our drive southwest. Karijini was worth the detour. After all, part of the joy in this kind of travel is the journey itself. We still hadn't encountered many people, but heading towards Perth, and with the December school holidays approaching, I figured this might change. National Park campsites open for bookings 180 days in advance, and even in the off-season, many of the best spots can get snapped up. Not wanting to run the risk of missing out, we hooked up Starlink for the 700-kilometre drive back to the coast and locked in a few sites for the coming weeks. A night at Nanutara Roadhouse broke up the drive, and the following day we continued northwest towards Exmouth. We were now in the Gascoyne region, also known as Western Australia's Coral Coast. Exmouth is a fun place to spend a few days, a quintessential holiday town with some cool spots to eat and drink. We did a bit of that, then loaded up on supplies before making our way into Cape Range National Park for a stay beside world-famous Ningaloo Reef. Reserving a site here a couple of days earlier had been a good move. Only a few of the park's campsites remain open for the off-season, and this area can be popular. Our site was backing onto Ningaloo Reef, which is one of the world's largest fringing reefs. This region is also famous for whale sharks that visit from March to July. I came here for work a few years ago to swim with them, and while it is an awesome experience, in December there's a pretty good alternative. Both loggerhead and flatback turtles shared the water with us, though perhaps the best encounter came from just outside the park, where dozens of them lined the shore and were mating. Back inside the national park, 50 kilometres of coastline provides plenty of places to swim and snorkel. After visiting a number of them, I reckon there's a clear standout, and that is Turquoise Bay.
Just found a little protected spot here behind the dunes. This has to be one of the most beautiful beaches in Australia. It's probably one of the best beaches I've seen anywhere in the world. White sand, turquoise water, and at 8:30 in the morning, we are the only people here. I guess that's the beauty of travelling in the off-season. That wind can be frustrating, especially as I turn this corner. My hair will be going absolutely everywhere, but it's a very small price to pay for a spot like this.
I'm clearly not the only one who likes it here. A couple of hours later, we left behind a full car park with buses coming in. While I promised that was my last shirtless piece to camera, we definitely weren't done with amazing beaches. A couple of hours south, our next stop was Coral Bay, a sleepy tourist town with a couple of pubs, a small supermarket, and another stretch of white sand backing onto Ningaloo Reef. With a powered oceanfront site costing us $88 a night, expectations were high. For context, the rate here was double that of anywhere on the trip so far, and yet we extended our stay, and I'm sure it's not hard to see why. It's hard to believe this is the same dangerous coastline we were on further north, because I reckon this is about as inviting as it gets. Unless, of course, you're put off by a few shy stingrays, or by their neighbours swimming just around the corner, where the shallow waters provide sanctuary to loads of juvenile reef sharks. While I wasn't about to jump in for a swim, reef sharks rarely bother anyone, which was worth keeping in mind, as our next destination was literally called Shark Bay. But first, another long stretch of highway lay ahead. We split this 500 kilometres over 2 days, stocking up on supplies in the town of Carnarvon. As the crow flies, this leg never took us more than 100 kilometres from the coast, but it felt a world away from what we'd had the past week. The temperature hit 45 degrees, and the skies we experienced in the Kimberley returned. Despite looking menacing, barely a drop of rain fell, and by the time we arrived at our campsite in South Perron, the skies had cleared again. This awesome spot is called Eagle Bluff, and we had it to ourselves. The camp is managed by WA Parks, but it felt like we had discovered a secret. Below us was Shark Bay, and unlike 80 Mile Beach, this place lives up to its name. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Area, one of only a few that meet all 4 of the natural criteria. There's an abundance of natural beauty, historic significance. Just down the road are living remnants of one of the oldest life forms on the planet, dating back about 3.5 billion years. The water here, very salty, a unique environment, and it's home to one of the world's largest sea meadows. A load of underwater grass that feeds sea turtles, dugongs, and provides a sanctuary to juvenile marine life. And then there's the region's biodiversity, both here on the land and out in the water. And that's what we're going to go check out next as we make our way down the road to Monkey Mia. Monkey Mia strikes me as the kind of place the same people return to year after year. A laid-back, family-friendly resort on a long stretch of golden sand. It's devoid of monkeys, but home to a number of emus and a lot of dolphins. And each morning these wild animals make their way to the shallows for a feeding session conducted by park rangers. Dolphins come and go from the beach at all hours, but it's out on the bay that you realise just how many there are. Dolphins might be the easiest creatures to spot, but they're certainly not alone in these waters. Various turtles, rays and sharks are also prevalent. But I was most excited to see a dugong. These massive herbivores are most closely related to elephants and are an endangered species. On paper, they're fascinating creatures, but unfortunately, they're not really that interesting to observe, and I'm told this has made raising funds and awareness for them rather difficult. While the other sea life was more fun to watch, I felt a sense of satisfaction having seen a dugong, and it topped off a great morning on the water. Monkey Mia was far from full, but we'd seen more people here than anywhere on the journey so far. Just as I thought we might be done with finding seclusion, we had an unexpected surprise, as we went an hour up the road to a spot called Whalebone. Being so close to the water, a high tide might have made things interesting, but how do you beat a spot like this? As with Eagle Bluff, self-contained vehicles can remain here for a maximum of 24 hours. I wish we could have stayed longer, as campsites like this epitomise what I love about road trips in an RV. What also makes this kind of travel so special is the constantly shifting landscapes moving between the coast and the outback. As we made our way south, life became more prevalent. Agriculture moved beyond cattle, and wildflowers started to dot the side of the road. Arriving 4 hours later in Kalbarri, temperatures felt less oppressive, and with these pleasant conditions, it surprised me how quiet it was. There's a decent selection of restaurants, and the beach itself is a drawcard. But I mainly came here to see Kalbarri National Park, which is one of the most visited in the state. There are 2 sides to the park, and both of them are close to town. First, we decided to head inland to take a look around the Murchison River Gorge. Wildflower season is a popular time to visit, and considering it ended about 2 months ago, it must have been quite a sight. The park has trails to lookouts, as well as to the canyon floor, and the views here are breathtaking. I found it hard to leave spots like this, but I knew there was plenty more to see. Hopping back in the car, it was only a short drive and an easy walk along smooth red rock to one of Western Australia's most iconic outback sites. Nature's Window has long been Kalbarri's most famous landmark, but recently something new opened. It's just a couple of kilometres down the road, and that is our final stop. The Skywalk opened in 2020, so new is relative. After all, Nature's Window has been here for hundreds of millions of years. I've often associated Kalbarri with these gorges, but as we resumed the drive south the next morning, we discovered the park's other side, an epic, wind-battered coastline. If that wasn't enough for one day, about an hour later we encountered Hutt Lagoon, one of Western Australia's legendary pink lakes. If you're like me, you'll assume the colours here have been played with, but it really was this pink. It's the byproduct of a salt-loving algae, and it is wild. We were now within a 6-hour drive of Perth, and suddenly the options on where to go and where to stay seemed endless. Stocking up on supplies one final time in Geraldton, the coast briefly gave way to a free riverside camp called Ellendale Pool. Surrounded by nature, this was an idyllic spot. Swimming isn't recommended here, but after 5 weeks on the move, I was more than happy to hook up Starlink and relax in the RV with some excellent summer viewing. Even further south, summer in Western Australia can get very hot, and I found being by the beach was the most comfortable option. So, back on the coast, the historic town of Dongara provided a relaxing couple of days by the water. This is a popular holiday destination during wildflower season and school holidays, but in early December, it's very peaceful. Our beachfront caravan park was within walking distance of a few restaurants, and I'm told the fishing here is phenomenal. A southwesterly wind had persisted through most of our drive down the coast, and it was particularly strong here. Luckily, some trails behind the dunes along the Irwin River provided shelter, both for us and a lot of bird life. Inching towards Perth, the massive outback gaps were officially gone. Just down the road sat Cliffhead, a beachfront site run by the local council. If you've seen previous videos, you'll know we've rented a few RVs from Maui in the past. Their parent company, THL, used to attend events I'd run at Tourism Australia. So I know that when the wet season comes, they often need to relocate some of their fleet from up north. We did just that while filming some content for them, which means we didn't pay for this motorhome. However, this video, and the previous one covering our journey from Darwin to Broome, were not part of our agreement. This is just me sharing my passion for Australia and giving Nat and I something to look back on when we're old and grey.
I think it's time to get on the road again.
For those curious, I will say we both found this big Maui River motorhome surprisingly easy to drive. Fully loaded with fuel and water, it goes through its share of diesel. But that's the price you pay for space and comfort on the open roads. 90 minutes south along the Indian Ocean Drive had us on the edge of Nambung National Park. We'd intended to be here for sunset and sunrise, but after discovering the nearby caravan park had a large school group staying, we opted for an afternoon walk instead. This area is commonly known as the Pinnacles, with thousands of limestone pillars that have been shaped by wind over 500,000 years. It's a landscape unlike anywhere I've experienced, except of course when I was here a couple of years ago on a day trip from Perth. But even if we didn't get to experience golden hour, I was very happy to be back. Having passed on nearby accommodation, we needed to hit the road again before the sun got too low and wildlife would pose a risk.
I'm a traveling man. I'm a traveling man.
With an extra night up our sleeve, we decided to extend our stay at our final stop, a national park just outside the state's capital called Yanchep. After 6 weeks on the road, travelling thousands of miles through some of the most harsh and remote parts of the country, arriving here felt slightly surreal. Yanchep is kind of like the Disneyland of WA's national parks. Along with beautiful trails and native wildlife, there's a koala habitat. Koalas aren't native to Western Australia, and while I prefer not to see animals in captivity, these guys have it pretty good. People staying here have it pretty good too. In addition to hot showers, there are glamping options, a restaurant, and if you're feeling lazy, it looks as though you can even get Uber Eats deliveries. While the delivery was tempting, we opted instead to polish off the last of our emergency rations before setting in for a final night under the stars. From Yanchep National Park, it took us less than an hour to get to the THL branch here in Perth and return the motorhome. And now I'm in Kings Park, which is one of my favourite places in the city. It's one of the world's largest city centre parks. It's got a whole bunch of gorgeous trails and a fantastic vantage point over the city. So what can I say about this trip that I haven't already shown you? I think first and foremost, it's that while travelling in the off-season can come with its challenges, whether that's weather, flies, or anything else, I would do this again in a heartbeat. The seclusion, the serenity, and the added sense of adventure made this an unforgettable trip. We've now done a lap of Australia, and these were two of the most memorable legs. 6 weeks seems like a long time, but we could have spent longer, whether in the national parks, doing more hikes, checking out more of the towns, or just swimming in that awesome water of the Indian Ocean. This state has some of the best beaches of anywhere I've been. Probably rivals Queensland for the world's best beaches, I reckon, but maybe I'm biased. I'm sure there are people watching this that have done their own trip down the coast and wish I'd gone to certain places or think I missed certain places. Please share them in the comments. I'm sure it'll help other travellers. If you're looking for some more travel inspiration, check out our other road trips from around Australia and overseas. We've got some really cool adventures we've done abroad. Before I end this, I have to give a shout out to Nat because along with filming some of the content for these videos, She's been driving the motorhome while I've jumped out to fly the drone and capture all that footage. And on top of it all, she's been working full-time hours throughout this trip. She's a legend. I'm very lucky to have her as a travel companion and as a partner. So thanks a lot, Nat. Anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate the support. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll tune in for another again soon. My name's Ricky Dunn. Bye for now.
I'm a traveling man.